should your work look like what's currently popular in the market? What's up? This is Joshua, MVA Studio, Minneapolis. In this video, I talk about the experience of seeing things that were really popular that looked sort of like work I had been making a couple years earlier. Not because anyone saw my work, just purely by coincidence. And how I had the false notion in my head up to that point that it mattered what the work looked like. So when you're starting out, people will love to tell you that your work should be appropriate, that it should look like what the market wants it to look like, that it should fit a certain genre. People will tell you all of this stuff, all this kind of conventional wisdom. And the problem with that conventional wisdom is, one, conventional wisdom is for conventional people. You don't want that. And then two, that conventional wisdom is always ends up making you smaller and less interesting. And a surefire way to do that is to go running after what's popular. Maybe in the misguided hope that because other people are doing a look or a style or an approach that's popular, if you do that, you can draft off their sales or whatever. There is a very, very slim chance that that is going to work, unless you're like number two and you're a better promoter than whoever you're drafting off of. So this video hopefully is a way of showing that what things look like and what is popular at any given time does not necessarily have anything to do with each other. And I am trying to give you a little bit of permission of go do you. Don't do the conventional wisdom thing. Don't do the appropriate thing. Go figure out what's your way of working, what's your approach, what gets you excited, and then figure out how you can mold that and manipulate it so that you can get the work that you want to be doing, or that you can get the recognition from the right, not the right people, but the right market, so that you can do the work you want to do in a way that's not embarrassing to you. I hope that you enjoy this, and if you have any feedback, I'd love to hear it. Thanks a lot for watching. Years ago, I remember being in a Starbucks and seeing that Beyoncé record that's got the black cover with the pink, all caps, super condensed type, really clean, kind of brutalist. I was kind of tripping when I saw it, because at the time, that record was in there, and a Lana Del Rey record, and maybe something else, and all of them had this like just super clean, super simple, all caps, condensed sans serif type in the cover. But the Beyonce one stood out to me the most, and it stood out to me because I looked at it and I thought, that looks like I made it. I do not mean that in terms of I think that whoever designed it was influenced by stuff I had made. I simply mean like I looked at it and thought that I was on the same wavelength with whoever designed it. And that was kind of important because in my mind, I was doing a lot of like really stripped down, super simple, kind of cold typographic stuff circa 2009, 2010. And to me, I was funneling that stuff into really kind of personal projects because I thought this stuff will never work for a bigger market. It's too stripped down, it's too cold, it's too austere, it's too whatever. So while like I loved this stuff, I just mostly assumed like, well, I like it because I'm a weirdo who likes stripped down, kind of cold, boring stuff. And then to see it on a mass market pop record definitely took me by surprise. And I think like that was kind of a critical moment for me of realizing that the way things look and what markets value have nothing to do with each other. Whatever style in terms of graphic design that's big in a commercial market. At one point it will have been the norm. At another point it will have been a cliche. At another point it will be the standard. Like, these things fluctuate. So aesthetics that came from like subcultures or underground stuff float in and out of the mainstream. And by the time people start grasping onto them to try to make stuff that looks like those things, they're dead in the water. By the time it's on a Beyoncé record, that is not the time to be like, oh, I should start making stuff that looks like that, because like you're already kind of crossing the threshold where that thing is going to be passe or a cliche or whatever, and it's not going to be relevant. There's a time where doing the kind of all Helvetica super stripped down thing was totally the norm for graphic design for decades, and then it disappeared and it was replaced by other things, and then eventually it's disappeared long enough that it starts to show up again in subculture stuff, and then it becomes mainstream again, and all of a sudden everything is like Helvetica kind of quasi-Swiss stuff, and then it will disappear. Kind of like the Americana thing that's like maybe finally dead and just fully a like cheesy cliche, except that in 7 years it'll be super interesting to see that stuff again. The reason I think all of this is kind of interesting is there's notion in graphic design all the time. They have to make stuff that's like appropriate to a market. The example would be like that if you're designing for a non-profit arts organization, stuff should look one way, and if you're designing for a non-profit community empowerment organization, stuff should look another way. Or if you're designing for a law firm, things should look a certain way. So there's like this idea of appropriateness. I find that to be a really counterproductive consideration, because what's considered appropriate 4 years before might have been the aesthetic of hardcore records. Like two good examples would be the recent like Justin Bieber thing that all looks like metal, or the fact that the last Taylor Swift record looks like a hardcore record. But that hardcore record may have looked like a David Carson layout for Surfer magazine in 1993. Everything is constantly in flux. And I think where this matters is like if you're a young designer and you're starting out, or you're in school and you hear these asinine conversations about what's appropriate, I mean, just start looking at design annuals. Like, look at design annuals just over the course of decades. You'll be shocked at what was once considered appropriate. Like when I was in my early 20s, everything was zany, crazy typography. And then it switched, and like now you can sort of see it coming back. Like if you follow like sports and records graphics, like zany 90s typography is coming back. It was gone for long enough that it can make a re-emergence. So it was appropriate at one time, inappropriate another time, appropriate again. Super stripped down, austere, art world looking stuff was suddenly appropriate for pop music. Now it probably isn't, because the world moves on, but it'll be appropriate again. And chances are whoever makes it appropriate, it has a lot more to do with their personality or the context that they operate in than the actual aesthetics. So it helps for there to be a reason why the thing looks the way it does, that there's a statement that you're trying to make, or a connecting point that you're trying to have. But then again, like, I mean, I don't know who designed the Taylor Swift record. I defy you to find me a connecting point to hardcore that Taylor Swift record has. So maybe that doesn't even matter. It kind of goes to show that the why of doing things is way less important than the how. Like the circles you function in, the way you present your work, the way that you position yourself, that's got so much more to do with how the work is interpreted than the aesthetics of the day. That's a theory, at least. All right, thanks a lot for watching.